pre-war preparations. The inexorable drifted silently in the cold shadow of the moon Virex. 9. Its black hull veined with glowing crimson veins that pulsed like arteries in a slumbering beast. Inside, the heart of the Galactic Empire's war machine stirred to life. In a high-ceilinged chamber of obsidian and brass, the Empire's most ruthless minds gathered at the command dais. Vice Admiral Cal Threx stood among them. Except Cal Threx was already dead. The figure wearing his face was Viera Locke, Earthborn, trained in shadows, surgically reconstructed to match the Admiral's DNA and neural profile. The real Threx had bled out 12 months ago in a forgotten sector. His identity had been harvested and inhabited by something far more dangerous than the Empire could ever imagine. A human who wasn't here to fight a war, but to erase it before it began. Final deployment vectors locked. Drone Supreme Warlord Orvek from the center of the tactical table. We strike Earth's moon first. Disable orbital defenses. Then the homeworld. No mercy, no prisoners. The species folds in 10 standard days. The admirals grunted in agreement. They saw Earth as a nuisance, a barking stray among the stars, technologically behind, isolated, and defiant. The Empire had crushed civilizations older and stronger. Humanity's resistance was laughable. But Viera knew the truth. It wasn't Earth's strength that made it dangerous. It was humanity's refusal to break. She had watched her parents die in the skyfire of a border colony, incinerated by an accidental Empire orbital strike. There were no reparations, no apologies, just silence. From that moment, she had chosen a path most couldn't even survive, let alone complete. Deep infiltration, surgical impersonation, psychological warfare. The mission was simple. Break the Empire from the inside. A soft chime sounded. Warlord Orvek looked toward Threx, Viera, with a nod. You'll manage fleet logistics for the initial wave, Admiral. We expect precision. Viera smiled beneath her mask. Of course, Warlord. Precision is my nature. Later that cycle, Viera stood alone in Admiral Threx's quarters. The door sealed behind her with a hiss. With a press of her fingers against the obsidian wall, it shimmered, revealing a hidden biometric lock. She slid a blade-thin device from her boot and inserted it into the slot. A faint blue light pulsed. Earth's black cell signal came online. Transmission received. You are green. Operation Black Curtain is a go. No ceremony, no fanfare, just the quiet hum of purpose. She moved to the mirrored wall and stared at herself. The face she wore was alien, skin slightly scaled, yellow eyes slitted like a serpent's, rigid mandibles folded neatly at her cheeks. She didn't just wear a disguise. She had become it. Muscle memory, speech inflections, even biological responses. The procedure had nearly killed her, but it was the only way to pass the Empire's obsessive biometric security. This body wasn't hers, but the mission was. She activated her internal holomap and scanned the chain of command roster. For names blinked red. Target 1, Sublogistics Overseer Vect Thalen. He controlled troop deployment paths. If his records were scrambled and he was conveniently eliminated, the Empire's invasion vectors would tangle themselves into chaos, and the other admirals would start pointing fingers. Viera moved quickly. Vec's shift ended in 90 minutes. She accessed the environmental override, depressurized an isolated corridor in Deck 12C just as he passed through. No alarms, no auto-seals, just a subtle failure in a section due for maintenance. Vect died, gasping silently, his eyes bulging against the viewport before the corridor sealed itself again. A small electrobrand scar left on his uniform collar matched a rogue faction signature. Viera retrieved her weapon and walked away. The next morning, alarms screamed through the command decks. He was sabotaged, one officer roared. This is a warning from the Vissian separatists. They wouldn't dare strike at this level, unless they had internal support, another countered. Paranoia, like a contagion, spread. Viera stood with the others, silent, watching the seeds take root. One admiral whispered to another. A few began to scrutinize Orvek's commands more closely. Eyes sharpened, trust thinned. By midday, a minor lockdown was ordered. Security doubled in high-level decks. Internal probes launched, but none of them saw the real enemy. She walked past them in Admiral Threx's skin, smiling politely. That night, Viera sent her second transmission. No words, just a pulse of encrypted data from the Dreadnought's shadow core. Earth's intelligence would decode the signal. Target 1, eliminated. Deception initiated. Suspicions rising. She looked out the viewport, past the swirling nebula, toward the faint speck of Sol. Let them come, she whispered. She wasn't here to fight the Empire. She was here to make it destroy itself. Trust burns first. The command center of the Inexorable was no longer a place of coordination. It had become a den of mistrust and whispered accusations. Vice Admiral Threx, Viera Locke, stood motionless near the holographic star map, eyes watching the slow pulse of the fleet's trajectory toward Sol. Ships moved like chess pieces. But in this game, the board was already crumbling. Logistics breakdowns in the Alpha battle group, barked Admiral Harkon, his thick neck tendons bulging beneath the weight of stress. Supplies rerouted without authorization. Fuel shortages. Weaponry mismatched to hull configurations. This smells like sabotage. Viera didn't need to fake her concern. She simply leaned forward and folded her arms with practiced gravity. Could be the Cien separatists again, she offered smoothly. They have insider support, we know this. We should be cautious about who we trust. She let the words hang in the air, slow and heavy. Across the table, Admiral Selravun narrowed her eyes. You accuse us, Threx? Not directly, Viera said, giving just enough edge. But it wouldn't be the first time elements within high command have been compromised. That's why Overseer Thalen died last cycle. The room exploded in voices, some demanding clarity, others deflecting blame. Viera remained quiet, watching the infection spread like fire across dry grass. It was happening faster than anticipated. These weren't hardened warriors. These were prideful tacticians, greedy nobles in uniforms, each with secrets and buried grudges. Loyalty was not earned in the Empire. It was purchased, blackmailed, or beaten into place. She didn't need to destroy the fleet. She just needed to light the right match. Later, in the isolation of her quarters, Viera initiated her second operation. Target 2, Grand Admiral Sazkar, Supreme Commander of the Theta Division. He was one of the few holding the fractured Admiralty together, a pragmatic warlord who had seen real battle, who questioned Orvek's obsession with the Earth campaign. That made him a threat. Viera had studied his habits for weeks, his schedule, his favored meditation chamber, even the frequency of his breathing rituals. He visited the biosensory chamber nightly, alone. She entered 10 minutes before he did, cloaked in the signature of an authorized servant. Her neural shroud distorted her presence on scans, mimicking another body's biometric profile. When Sazkar arrived, his 4 eyes were glazed from deep mental focus. The chamber filled with mist and low-frequency harmonics. He never saw her step behind him. He never felt the thin blade slip between his shoulder plates. She caught him before he collapsed and lowered him gently to the ground. She placed a false insignia, stolen from Admiral Vun's sector officers, on the hilt of the blade. Then she vanished. When the body was discovered 3 hours later, the command deck erupted into open chaos. This is assassination. We are at war with ourselves now. Harkon yelled, slamming his fist on the command rail. No, Vun spat back. We're at war with you. Your sector has the highest defection rate among outer colonies. Now the Theta Admiral is dead and his chambers accessed by someone using your core ID. Harkon lunged. Guard stepped in. The scene unraveled. Orvek's voice thundered over the intercom. Stand down. Every officer on the Inexorable is now under observation. Loyalty scans commence within the hour. No one leaves their sector. The command chamber emptied quickly, suspicion thick in the air. No one made eye contact. Viera remained behind, watching the lights flicker on the master star map. The Empire's mighty fleet, so confident, so vast, now divided into sealed subcommands. Paralyzed by fear, this was no longer a war of ships. It was a war of trust, and trust was dying. Earth's Lunar Intelligence Station, codenamed Umbra, received the pulse transmission 12 hours later. Deep inside a subcrater relay array, Director Kessin stared at the decrypted message from Agent Locke. Second target neutralized. Command split confirmed. Prepare Phase 3. He leaned back in his chair and chuckled bitterly. She's carving through them like a scalpel, he muttered. They won't reach our orbit at this rate. The technicians nearby glanced at one another, silently in awe. Back aboard the inexorable, the tremors grew stronger. The Theta Division, now without Sazkar, had withdrawn half its ships to the edge of the star system. Admiral Vun retaliated by rerouting her own battle group to flank them, citing preventive containment. The Empire's invasion of Earth had been slated for 32 standard hours from now. That countdown was suspended. The fleet was no longer aimed outward. It was turning inward. Viera watched from the upper observatory deck as cruisers drifted uneasily into new formations, like wolves circling each other, unsure of who might lunge first. She activated her internal recorder and whispered her next log. Cycle 7. Second elimination successful. 2 admirals dead, 3 factions splintered. Suspicion at peak. Orvek still believes in stability, but he won't for long. Soon, they'll start pulling weapons on each other. She looked into the black void beyond the ship's shielding. This was never going to be a war. She smiled faintly. It's a collapse. Collapse from within. The inexorable shuddered, not from external fire, but from the thunder of internal explosions. Deck 17 had gone dark. Entire corridors had been sealed off by auto firewalls. Medical units rushed through smoke-filled passageways as emergency klaxons blared through the command vessel like the wail of a dying beast. Viera Locke moved through the chaos with calm precision. Her admiral's uniform, now scorched and stained, gave her unrestricted access as she glided through the crippled dreadnought. She didn't need to fake the urgency anymore. The fleet was eating itself alive. It had started with a preemptive strike. Theta Division launched 2 precision plasma warheads at Vun's outer carrier group, believing they had uncovered her connection to the assassination of Sazkar. Vun responded instantly. Mass drivers shredded 3 cruisers in orbit. That was the spark. Now the civil war had begun. Admirals no longer convened. They targeted each other. The countdown to Earth's invasion had stopped at 11 hours. Now command systems were locked, jump drives were isolated, and central authority had collapsed, exactly as Viera intended. In the security center, Admiral Drexler Malvik stood watching the madness on the view screen. He was no fool. Of the remaining high command, he alone saw what the others did not. The pattern. Every loss. Every death. Every logistical error. It wasn't just a collapse. It was crafted. We are being infiltrated, he said, voice low. Not by separatists. Not by dissidents. This is something else. He turned to his chief security officer. Run every admiral through biometric and neural scan audits. Start with Threx. He's been too precise. Too clean. Viera felt it before the alert reached her. A shift in tone. The kind of silence that only comes when people start whispering your name for the wrong reasons. Her neural HUD flickered. Security drones rerouted. Patrol routes altered. Malvik knew. It wasn't enough to run. It was time to finish the mission. She initiated Phase 3 manually. Hidden relays activated deep in the engineering core. A timed overload, spread across the fusion banks, encrypted against system overrides. The inexorable, the Empire's flagship, would not survive the day. But neither would her final target. Target 4, Admiral Drexler Malvik. He had become the wild card. If he survived and sounded the alarm beyond this fleet, the Empire might regroup. If he died now, under the right conditions, the command fracture would become irreversible. Viera retrieved her pulse shiv and moved into the restricted levels. Malvik waited. He had ordered his guards to fall back against protocol. The corridor outside his command station was deathly quiet. He stood with his plasma pistol holstered, arms crossed, waiting for the traitor to show her face. When the lights dimmed and her silhouette emerged from the far hallway, he didn't draw. He studied her. watching the stiffness in her posture, the slight misalignment of her gait. "You're not Threx." "No," Viera said. They stood 10 meters apart, surrounded by nothing but smoke and the flicker of failing power grids. "You've destroyed our fleet." "I didn't have to. You did that yourselves. I just helped you see what you really are. You're human." Viera gave a faint nod. "And I'm the reason Earth still breathes." In one blur of motion, Malvik drew and fired. But Viera was already moving, her pulse shiv humming as she deflected the shot, closed the distance, and drove it deep into his side. He staggered, coughing blood, grabbing at her arm. "I should have known," he hissed. "You did," she whispered. "Too late." She lowered him gently, just as she had with the others. From orbit, Earth's deep space reconnaissance array detected the signal they had been waiting for. A data packet, buried in an automated communications burst for the inexorable's engine core. Fourth target eliminated. Fleet collapse total. Extraction window, 72 hours. At Umbra Station, Director Kessin simply nodded. "She's done it," he said. Before the war even began. Alarm screamed as Viera raced through flickering corridors. Her internal countdown read, T-minus 14 minutes until the engineered core detonation. Fires raged around her as the dreadnought's systems failed one by one. She reached the exterior docking ring. A stealth pod awaited her, camouflaged as an old Empire maintenance skiff. It had been sitting there for weeks, hidden in plain sight. She sealed the hatch behind her, lungs heaving. The inexorable began to die behind her. From afar, the explosion looked like a collapsing star. One of the most feared symbols of the Galactic Empire detonated in silence. Its core torn apart from within, its command structure erased. The surrounding fleets, already distrustful, retreated into paranoid silence. None dared assume leadership. None knew who to trust. In a matter of days, the Empire withdrew from the Sol campaign. They had never fired a single shot at Earth. In a black operations chamber beneath Earth's surface, Viera Locke stood before the Council of Shadows. "You went off timeline," one of them said. "I accelerated collapse," she replied. "If I had waited, Malvik might have warned the outsystems. You could have died. I was prepared to." There was a pause. Then a voice spoke from a dark. "You've done more than prevent a war. You've created a legend." Viera turned. "I don't care about legends," she said. "Just results. War that never was." The Galactic Empire never issued a statement. Not when the inexorable exploded. Not when 3 of its admirals vanished without explanation. And certainly not when its greatest invasion fleet fractured into isolated factions and retreated from a Sol system. But the galaxy noticed. Whispers spread across border worlds and neutral colonies. The humans didn't win the war. They ended it before it even began. Viera Locke sat quietly inside the debriefing chamber beneath Earth's Arctic command bunker. The walls were sterile, the light painfully bright. She still wore pieces of her Admiral Threx disguise, scaled skin at the base of her neck, subdermal implants humming beneath her spine. Her human body hadn't fully readjusted yet. Across from her, Director Kessin studied her with the cold precision of a surgeon. Operation Black Curtain. Execution rating, 98.7%. 1 infiltration for assassinations and the premature collapse of an entire campaign force. She said nothing. There was nothing to add. "You understand what you've done, Locke?" She met his eyes. "I prevented a war." "No," he said, leaning forward. "You didn't just stop an invasion. You shattered their myth of superiority. You've made them bleed from the inside." The rest of the galaxy saw it. They saw that humanity didn't win with fleets or dreadnoughts. He tapped the table. "We won with one." 2 systems away, the fractured remnants of the Empire's high command met in secrecy aboard a secondary battle station. There were no broadcasts, no grand speeches, just shame and silence. Admiral Vun, one of the few remaining, addressed the grim gathering. "We do not speak of Earth," she said bitterly. "Not until we understand what happened aboard the Inexorable. Not until we know who killed our own. Some wanted retribution. Some wanted retreat. But all agreed on one thing. Fear had replaced contempt. No one could confirm the assassin's identity. Surveillance logs have been wiped. Autopsies inconclusive. Dozens of officers have been falsely identified as traitors, then executed. The chain of command had been permanently damaged. One officer whispered, "Perhaps there was no infiltrator. Perhaps it was just human cunning." That made it worse. Back on Earth, Viera Locke walked through a quiet corridor in the mountainside headquarters of Black Cell Division. No honors waited for her. No medals. That was the rule. Deep agents didn't exist. She liked it that way. Still, she knew the truth of what she'd done was growing beyond her reach. They were already calling her by names she hadn't chosen. The ghost of the Empire. The knife in the stars. The assassin of soul. And soon, they'd forget her real name, just as she'd been trained to forget herself. In the weeks that followed, transmissions leaked into the galactic web. Not from Earth, but from independent sources, pirate bands, and neutral traders who'd intercepted the collapse in real time. A pirate vessel near Virex. 9 uploaded fragmentary audio. Screams aboard the inexorable. Orders contradicting each other. Weapons firing at friendly ships. Chaos. The footage went viral. It showed the Empire turning on itself, and Earth never lifting a finger. One commentator said, "This wasn't a war. It was a warning." Humanity, once mocked as primitive and defiant, now carried a different reputation in the stars. They were cunning, dangerous, unwilling to surrender. But worse than that, they were patient. If one human could dismantle a fleet, what else had Earth hidden? Viera stood at the edge of Earth's atmosphere inside a small observation shuttle, watching Sol burn steadily over the horizon. The scars of her mission weren't visible, but she felt them. Pieces of the admiral's body still clung to her. Pieces of that life. The words she spoke. The lies she lived. They had changed her. The shuttle doors opened behind her. A figure stepped inside, an officer she didn't recognize. Young, nervous. "You're being reassigned," he said, voice tight with respect. "Level Theta. Red access. Deep ops." Viera raised a brow. "Another assassination?" The officer hesitated. "It's unclear. They said this one isn't about killing." She turned toward him. "Then what's it about?" He swallowed hard. "They said it's about teaching." She said nothing at first. "Then, they want me to train the next one." He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am." Viera stared out into the stars again. A long pause. Then she said, softly, "Empires fall not with armies, but with shadows." The officer didn't respond. She turned to him one last time. "And I am the shadow."